Joe Biden and Donald Trump announced that they will come together and debate. And the real loser is the United States of America. But we'll talk about some of the issues that'll be on the table, some of the strategy that may be used, what's going to happen between these two men, and why it even matters at this point. But we'll go over all of that and more to start the show and tell you what's going on in the world. In other news, the trial of Donald Trump in several courts has hit snags as Fani Willis goes to an appeals court and may be taken off the case, and the Mar-a-Lago documents case is put on indefinite suspension. Plus, we will be talking about Stormy Daniels and Michael Cohen's testimony because, well, the entire mainstream media apparatus is praising the Michael Cohen's testimony, but man, they're having a hard time talking about what happened with Stormy Daniels. So we'll go over that, what's happening there, and what we do with that. The Biden admin is under investigation for conspiring with the DOJ to do the lawfare, but the most salacious detail of the admin to date is the fact that Biden decided to announce that he was going to withhold military aid. You know, that thing that President Trump got impeached over, and the world situation in Niger falls apart as the U.S. is ordered to withdraw all troops. We'll go over what's going on there, why that matters, and what we do with that information. It is going to be all of this and more over here on Contemporary. So grab some friends, strap yourselves in, come hang out, and we'll see what's going on in the rest of the world. And you, who are on the road, must have a code you try to live by, and so become yourself, because the past is just a goodbye. Teach your children well. Their father's hell did slowly go by. Feed them on your dreams, the one they pick, the one you'll know by. Don't you ever ask them why? If they told you, you would cry. So just look at them and sigh, and know they love you. I am Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. All apologies for not being here last night and having to reschedule last minute. There are a few things that are in limbo in my life right now. One of them is on the work front, and yeah, that has been eating at a lot of my mind. There were some things that had to get taken care of because of that, and I knew that there was no way, especially with the blow that I took on Monday night, that I was going to be able to put on an effective show last night. Like, I had all the tabs up, and we've added a couple more since then because, well, now we're going to start off talking about the debate night instead of the lawfare. But I looked at myself and I'm like, I can't put on a proper show like this. I am way too stressed about what's happening on one front of my life, and there were some things that had to be taken care of on another front of my life as well. So, and you wouldn't have the high energy. I call myself high energy, and I don't know if that's a lie or what's going on with that, but I was not going to be the regular Jay Edgar for this, but the news stops for nobody, so I guess going after Diablo is going to have to get bumped for the week because, well, we're going to do Fallout on Friday, so we're going to talk about what's happening in the world today, mostly in the U.S., because that seems to be what's driving most everybody's talking points throughout this week here. So we'll go over the lawfare. We'll be going over some Biden lawfare as well, even some Bob Menendez lawfare, if you can believe that. They're actually going to do something about that guy. We'll talk about the debates, some of the strategy there. I do have some foreign news here between Israel and Niger, so we've got some of that. That'll be at the very bottom of the stack here today. But yeah, it's going to be wild, and it's just going to be over the two morons who think that they are better than the other moron at leading the country. So, well, I hope you like Trump and Biden news, because that's what we're going to be doing today over here in Contemporary. So, before we get started, make sure you guys go check out great programming such as The Daily Ignoramus, clearing 1,000 episodes, The Daily Ignoramus, by the way. I was looking in a little bit on that today as I had a chance to. There was a little bit of hecticness going on during his stream, so I couldn't stick with it for the majority of it, but what I could listen to, yeah, he's still going strong. And also to check out Overruled with KTZed. That's going to be an awesome time. Those people are two of the more important people in my life, and the people who have stuck to the streaming and work schedule, while a few of my other friends have fallen off at this point, either for a career or other avenues or scheduling in their lives. But do check out the two that are still going strong. It is going to be a fantastic time. It's a great time. I love those people very dearly, and I'm glad that they're in my life. But we do have a lot to get to today, and let's get started. Gotta do some scrolling here. I was scrolling down looking for a Pacific X earlier and lost it there for a sec. Alright, let's do this. By the way, do feel free to live chat as you see fit, and as you see something that either bothers you, makes you happy, or otherwise in this, because the more you chat, the more we get out to the front page, and the more we get promoted by Twitch and Rumble. I'm not going to say by YouTube, because I'm algorithmically demoted there no matter what, but go and check that out. Let's see what you guys are saying. Palm is first. Vong is only because his mom texted him as I went live. I don't know about all that. Okay, I come to this channel to watch the two most insane types of shenanigans in existence, politics and video games. Instead you read poetry. Entertain me. Dancing Yeti. Yeah, I do thrive well in the cold climate, so I could call myself a Yeti. Yes, that is possibly true, but that is not poetry. That is a song from the 70s. And I challenge you, Vong, to figure out which song that was from the 70s by the end of the stream. Vong says, see what I did there? I can't be called racist for that comment, because Yetis have white fur. Nice. Alright. Let's get down into it. Nothing over on the Rumble side. I hope Helix comes by. I want to see what he has to say that I'm not going to be able to read on air. Alright, let's talk about debate night in the United States, starting with the official account of Joseph Robinette Biden Jr. You've already seen the flashing and the jump cuts, but we're going to talk about that in just a sec. Biden offering this challenge today. From the caption, Hey man, Donald Trump lost two debates to me in 2020, man. Since then he hasn't shown up for a debate. Now he's acting like he wants to debate me again. Well, make my day, pal. Yes, that's actually, for those of you listening to the audio platform, that was the X that's announcing this video. Let's listen to it. Note the jump cuts. Note the fact that this is a 15-second video and there are 6 jump cuts in it.
Donald Trump lost 2 debates to me in 2020. And since then, he hadn't shown up for debate. Now he's acting like he wants to debate me again. Well, make my day, pal. I'll even do it twice. So let's pick the dates, Donald. I hear you're free on Wednesdays. Donald Trump lost 2 debates to me.
I will do full concession that last little bit with the lawfare that Biden's DOJ and the people who are allied with Biden's DOJ. That was a clever line. That was a clever one. I will give credit where credit is due, and I do not give credit to this man very often. That was a clever one. But let's count the jump cuts, shall we?
Donald Trump lost 2 debates to me in 2020. And since then, he hadn't shown up for debate. Now he's acting like he wants to debate me again. Well,
3,
make my day, pal. I'll even
4,
do it twice. So let's pick the dates, Donald. I hear you're
5.
free on Wednesdays. Donald Trump.
Okay, it's 5, not 6. But still, to do a 15-second clip with 5 jump cuts. Now, I will fully come out and make the admission and own up to it. When I started out and was doing one-off videos, yeah, you could count the jump cuts in there too. I was brand new to the system and I was transitioning over from writing, and I was still reeling from some of the things that had gone on in my life rather immediately prior. In fact, some of them still had been going on when I started recording videos. So yes, I was kind of, looked down at the notebook and yes, the Parkland shooting was bad, and this was because of bullying, and I did this back when I started, and everything else, and jump cut, and yeah, look at this, and here are your statistics, and jump cut. I'll own up to that. I was like that at the beginning of this, but I mean, if you've seen some of my more recent one-off videos, I don't need a jump cut. Maybe I could have used a couple of them in my Trump one, because I did listen back to it, and I did go silent a few times, but I didn't need one. I didn't really lose my train of thought. I try not to do that here either, so sometimes I do, and sometimes we trail off a little bit, and I have to wonder where it was that I started from, but yeah, for 15 seconds, 5 of them. That is a jump cut every 3 seconds. 80 million votes, folks. And by the way, I watched both of those debates, and that man that you see on your screen right now, if you are watching on the video platform, if you're watching on the audio platform, it is, of course, the current steward of the United States, did not lose any debate. Not that I'm saying that Donald did well, but that man did not win a debate against him. That man cannot win a debate against his bran muffin in the morning. A response from Truth Social. Tony, at TonyX2, X'd out. Trump just posted this on his Truth Social. Fire emoji, fire emoji, fire emoji, fire emoji, fire emoji, fire emoji. Crooked Joe Biden is the worst debater I've ever faced. He can't put 2 sentences together. Crooked is also the worst president, and worse is, of course, because it's Donald Trump in all caps, in the history of the United States, which is also a lie, Donald Trump. That is, of course, Woodrow Wilson. Oddly enough, and I can't stand Joe Biden, he's not even in the top 5 of the worst. Or the bottom 5, I should say. I can think of 5 presidents worse than Biden right now. It's time for a debate, so he can explain to the American people his highly destructive open border policy, new and ridiculous EV mandates, which the free market is killing in a hurry, by the way, the allowance of crushing inflation, high taxes, and his really, really weak foreign policy. Weak, of course, again, is all caps, which is allowing the world to catch on fire. I'm ready and willing to debate Crooked Joe at the 2 proposed times in June and September. I would strongly recommend more than 2 debates, and for excitement purposes, a very large venue. Although Biden is supposedly afraid of crowds, that's only because he doesn't get them. Just tell me when, I'll be there. Let's get ready to rumble, which I'm guessing what that last one is. The Donald proposing that one of them air exclusively on Rumble. In fact, I am almost sure of that, but of course that's not going to happen. Get the live chat back up here so I can see what you guys are doing and / or saying. Vong says, I'm starting to drive to church to practice with my Scala for Mass on Sunday, so I have time to find the song. It wouldn't be hard to do if I had the time. Is Trump trying to say he's a master debater? I'm thinking that is actually what he's saying. I guess that is right, since Melania probably doesn't want him. I don't know about that. I don't think she wanted to be in the spotlight, which, I mean, that's understandable. Look at what they did to her husband. And look at what the detractors from the other side are doing to Jill. I wouldn't want to be a first lady in this politically toxic climate. I wouldn't want to be a lady anyway, but somebody's saying the most watched debate of all time, and actually that I could see. Especially if it happens to fall on a channel that's small enough that you'll be able to get your words in edgewise and get them heard or said and read out on air on top of it. Well, CNN has obliged us. Just announced, CNN will host a 2024 presidential debate between President Biden and former President Trump. In Atlanta, Georgia, the debate will air live at 6:27 at 9 p.m. Eastern Time on CNN, CNN Max, and without a cable login at CNN.com. More with a CNN link, which I have provided for you here from the CNN press room. CNN to host 2024 election presidential debate between President Biden and former President Trump on June 27th. And on that night, which June 27th is, let me double check my calendar. A Thursday. So on that night, a Thursday night, you will get to witness that right here on this channel, 9 p.m. Eastern, 8 Central. I will be streaming this live, probably starting at 7:30, so we can get some people in and discuss what is going to be discussed on this debate. But yes, we will air that live here on Contemporary. Special guest co-host, I don't know, we'll have something in the works. KTZed would probably do it. Some other people I have in mind that would probably sit in for that as well. So, yep, we're going to do that right here. I don't know if I can do this on YouTube or not. I'm going to try. We're not going to keep shying away from that. I'm actually going to try and see if I get copyright slapped from YouTube. But on Twitch, and I will re-sign into DLive for that, and on Kick, and on Rumble. We'll sit down, we'll discuss what's going on, we will live react to that, I will read your live chats, and we will see what it is that these two morons have to say. The debate will be held in CNN's Atlanta studios. Jake Tapper and Dana Bash will serve as moderators to ensure candidates may maximize the time allotted the debate. No audience will be present. That is per the demand of the White House. And that's actually lame because I'd kind of like to see an audience with participation in there. Additional details will be announced at a later date. To qualify for participation, candidates must fulfill the requirements outlined in Article 2, Section 1 of the Constitution. File a statement of candidacy to the Federal Election Commission, which they have. A candidate's name must appear on a sufficient number of state ballots to reach the 270 electoral vote threshold to win the presidency prior to the eligibility deadline. Agree to accept the rules and format of the debate and receive at least 15% in 4 separate national polls of registered or likely voters that meet CNN standards for reporting, which means they can pick and choose which polls that they want, and that means that whoever winds up being the LP candidate, RFK Jr., Cornel West, Jill Stein, will not be participating in this. I would love to see a polling run-up for RFK Jr., not because I want him to be president, just so that CNN can't deny him that. But of course, they can pick and choose which poll that they want. I want to see RFK on the stage because I want to hear, okay, Crooked Joe, you're the worst person over here, and RFK, you're a loon. You got the brainworm. Hey man, who are you calling? Oh, you old bastard, man. I don't go behind the woodshed. We're all gonna. My brainworm says that we've all got to get along out of here. The jokes write themselves, you guys. Oh, and we have a list of who meets the editorial standards. CNN, of course, ABC, CBS, Fox, Marquette, Monmouth, NBC News, the New York Times, a former newspaper, NPR, Quinnipiac, the Wall Street Journal, and the Washington Post, where democracy goes to die in darkness. I don't know, you jerk-offs, why don't you use the aggregator? I mean, it would still screw RFK Jr., but... and what's going to be discussed on this debate? I've got an idea of this already. Now, I've already had conversations back and forth with people on X. And I pointed out one thing. If former President Trump brings up the Ashley Biden diary, he's toast. That would be the piss-poorest strategy he could possibly think of to do off this. I can't believe I'm about to say this, but Donald Trump is in this position right now where he can argue on policy and win on policy. I can't believe those words just came out of my mouth. But he can sit down and hammer on policy, knowing full well, of course, that he has not been in a position to make policy in 3.5 years. And in those 3.5 years, the lives of most Americans have fallen to a point that they are lower. Biden cannot run on the economy. No matter how much his people try to fluff up the numbers, people still go to the grocery store. He may stupidly still try to bring this up and say X amount of jobs, record unemployment, etc. And of course, CNN is going to softball and questions off of this. Joe Biden is going to stand on the stage and do nothing but say, "You're in court, you're a criminal, felony indictment." Because realistically, the election comes down to this. Republicans in every instance, state, local, and federal level, plus the presidency, the Donald himself, are in a position where they can go back and run on the economy, on the border, on foreign policy. Remember, we had no new wars for 4 years. I kind of wish we'd ended a few of them that were still ongoing, but we had no new ones for 4 years. Democrats are on the defensive right now. And their big strategy is to try to put people, especially with no presidency above them, onto the defensive. And I don't think it's going to work. I actually don't. I don't know how this is going to go. Especially when you've got a wild card like the crazy uncle at the table who says the most off-the-wall shit and then hands you a $20 bill and says, "Happy Thanksgiving." And that's what the Donald is. Whatever's going to happen, we're going to see it live right here on this channel. So strap yourselves in for that. We got a little bit of economic news before we get into the lawfare I want to touch on just before we do that. Coming from CNN Breaking News. And this is really, really funny and dishonest too. But all three major stock indices closed at record highs on Wednesday after economic reports showed America has made progress in bringing inflation lower. With the article linked from CNN.com, which we will also go into. Do you want the top business news summarized each day? Yes, I do, but not from you. S&P, NASDAQ, and Dow hit record highs after encouraging inflation data from Alicia Wallace. All three major indices surged to record highs on Wednesday after new data showed that inflation cooled in April after ticking up recently. Fact check, it did not cool. The S&P, the tech-heavy NASDAQ, and blue-chip Dow all closed at new record highs after the latest consumer price index showed that prices were up 3.4% for the 12 months ended in April, easing from 3.5% the month before. But we're still not below 2. Does anybody else notice that? You know, the Federal Reserve's benchmark for inflation being, quote, under control, 2%. Weirdly enough, we're not below that mark, but they're still saying, it's cooled, it's eased. No, we're pulling 3.4% on top of 5 point whatever the hell percent it was at this point last year, on top of the 9% it was at this time the year before. The broad market S&P gained more than 1.2% on Wednesday and cracked the 5300 level for the first time, closing at 5308.15. The NASDAQ was about 1.4% higher, setting a new record at 16,742.39. Keep in mind, these aren't inflated dollars, and the numbers you see on your points chart do reflect actual real-world dollars, just not in the amount that is shown by the index's current value. There's a weight to that. The Dow, meanwhile, was up 350 points, or 0.9%, and teetered near the 40,000 level, closing at 39,908. All three major indices are tracking towards a winning week. Investors believe that cooler inflation reading, coupled with separate reports showing weak retail sales in April, increase the likelihood that the Federal Reserve will cut interest rates this year. Really? Because Jerome Powell just said the exact opposite yesterday when he saw the PPI, which went hotter. Taken together with retail sales, this supports a Fed rate cut in the fall. Gary Zagao, head of fixed income at CIBC Private Wealth US, wrote in a note to clients on Wednesday. So the guy who handles Social Security accounts is telling you, oh yeah, everything's going to be fine. Wednesday's report landed mostly in line with economists' expectations, which is a welcome turnabout from January, February, and March, when CPI and other inflation gauges came in hot, and hot. This was a good report in the context of 3 hotter than expected CPI reports, and it makes it look like potentially those were bumps in the road rather than a really stagnant inflation environment. Tyler Shipper, economics professor at the University of St. Thomas in Minnesota, told CNN in an interview. Give me just 1 second. Apologize for that. I thought I heard my door. Anyway, getting back into it. Oops. Flip the camera on the phone for the Instagram feed. On a monthly basis, prices rose 0.3% at a slower pace of growth than the 0.4% seen in the 2 months prior, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics CPI report. Economists are expecting a 0.4% monthly increase and an annual gain of 3.4%, according to FactSet consensus estimates. Rising gasoline and shelter costs accounted for more than 70% of the monthly increase in overall inflation, according to the report. Let's talk about this for just a moment here, because we're being told right now as we go, inflation is going down, everything is good, the economy is fantastic. Where do you see that? And I'm being serious. When you look around, where do you see that? I mean, the gas prices are actually somewhat leveled off at this point, miraculously, given the fact that everything else in the world has become more expensive. And we're not seeing the $4 and $5 a gallon, even in the middle of the country kind of thing that we saw all the way back in 2021, 2022. When we first back up onto the gas crunch. And there may be actually something that helps that out as well. I was listening to another live streamer do Science News, and apparently there was a massive store of oil that was found off the Antarctic coast. How are they going to get to it? That remains to be seen, but that means that we are far from draining the reserves. So there's that coming off of here, and I mean, we're talking an amount of oil that can keep the UK economy, who has territorial claim to the part of Antarctica that this was found in, going for over 100 years if they can figure out a way to refine it. So we have that going off of this, but where are prices down? Or even somewhat close to leveling off? I mean, still, every time you go to the grocery store, it's just me in this house. And I can't get out of the Woodman's, which is the cheap option in Wisconsin, for under $60. And that is including the fact that most of my meals for the night are provided by a company called Factor. Because again, it is just me in this household. $60 for one person. The last time I was in a 2-person household, we thought that we had way overspent if we got to 30 combined. So something has got to give here. Now we've got the message. Alright, I gotta go check my door. I'll be right back. Alright, sorry about that. The door has been answered, and we are back on live. So, our economy, they're saying it's in a major spot right now, but I don't believe it. I've never believed it. Alright. Let's start talking about some of the electioneering, because we've got a lot to go over there. Alright, first, from the Democrat side, and when Fareed Zakaria is saying that you as a Democrat can't win, you might want to start thinking about what's going on here. And we've got about a 5-minute video. I'm not going to watch the whole thing. I have watched the whole thing, but we're going to take some key points off of that. So let's have a listen to Fareed Zakaria.
Here's my take. When President Biden made clear he was going to run for re-election, I had a sense of what his election strategy was and thought it was an intelligent path to victory. After the chaos of COVID and Trump, Joe Biden would stand for normalcy and a rising tide of good economic news. Donald Trump would divide Republicans, with significant chunks of the party wishing that someone like Nikki Haley or Ron DeSantis would be their nominee. Meanwhile, Trump would unite and motivate Democrats, allowing President Biden to focus on the votes of independents in swing states who threw the Electoral College to Trump in 2016 and to Biden in 2020.
Honk, honk.
I have to admit, none of this is playing out as I thought it would. Trump is now leading in almost all the swing states, but behind those numbers lie even more troubling details. As someone worried about the prospects of a second Trump term, I think it's best to be honest about reality. I understand that polls are not always accurate, but in general, they have tended to underestimate Donald Trump's support, not overestimate it. I doubt that there are many shy Biden voters in the country. The economy has been in a robust recovery for more than 2 years now, with unemployment hitting a 54-year low in 2023 and increasing only
I question that
since
number
then.
too, by the way.
But Biden is getting little credit for it. The shift here is stark. On the question of who voters trust more to deal with the economy, Trump has a 22-point lead over Biden, according to an NBC poll from January. This marks a 15-point bump for Trump compared to the same poll in 2020. Perhaps this is because inflation is a far more pervasive problem than unemployment, affecting all Americans every day. Perhaps it's because people's views on the economy now are largely derived from their broader attitudes towards the candidates. But whatever the reasons, it's a stunning reversal in the midst of a relentless stream of good economic news. On cultural issues, Biden and Democrats benefit from the opposition to the Republican Party's position on abortion. But on the other great cultural issue, immigration, Biden is 35 points behind Trump as to who would handle it better. And I do wonder whether abortion will be as large an issue in a presidential race, given that reversing Roe v. Wade threw the issue to state governments and legislatures and not the federal government. Perhaps the most worrying new trend for the Democrats is that far from being the more unified party, they are now bitterly divided over the war in Gaza. Bernie Sanders has said the eruption of pro-Palestinian protests could be Biden's Vietnam, and even invoked the specter of Lyndon Johnson choosing not to run for re-election in 1968 because of the opposition to that war. The analogy is far-fetched. America then was itself sending hundreds of thousands of troops to Vietnam, with more being recruited from college campuses every week. But there's no denying that the party seems more openly divided than it has been in decades.
All right, there is a lot to unpack with this. So we've got to start. I'm actually going to start on the bottom with the Israel thing, because that is going to be the big push. Now, as we get closer to November, and we're already seeing some of these articles come out and talk about this, where they're trying to spin, and I've got a couple of them put up on the stack. In fact, I've got a couple of them to talk about here in a little bit. But the articles are already coming out. If Donald Trump wins, it's going to be, he's going to start a war, and he's going to deport anybody who disagrees with him. And he's going to crash the economy, and he's going to force everybody into slave labor, and he's going to get rid of anybody who doesn't look like him, and put all his political enemies into prison camps. And I mean, they're coming and they're coming and they're coming and they're coming over and over and over and over again because they have nothing else to run on at this point. And they're going to try to scare these college protesters into, well, staying home is a vote for Donald Trump. Voting for Jill Stein is a vote for Donald Trump. Voting for RFK Jr. is a vote for Donald Trump. A protest vote is a vote for Donald Trump. You know, all the same bullshit that I've been hearing every time I say I'm not going to go back out and vote for anybody, because I still have not decided to go and vote for anybody in this election. And I get that same bullshit line from people with MAGA in their Twitter handle constantly. Oh, that's just a vote for Joe Biden. But there's a decent chance that all these college kids stay home off of this because, I mean, they look at Biden and they're open about it and say, hey, he's funding a genocide. He's supporting Israel as they go and kill the colonizers. Wait, no, they're the colonizers. See, they say so much wacky shit that I can't get it straight off at this point. As far as the economy goes, who do you know that's better off right now economically than they were in 2019? We're not going to talk about 2020, this metric, because there were a lot of extenuating circumstances with that. Some of them are being blamed on the Donald, and that is actually somewhat acceptable, especially when it came with the money that came in from the rescue and aid package. And some of them had to do with the fact that, and I talked about this in my What It Would Take to Vote for Donald Trump video, the fact that a lot of this was blue state governors shutting down their economies in order to make it look like they lost X amount of jobs in Trump's term. And there was a net loss through Trump's term. But they had to lose millions of jobs to get to a net loss at that point. Millions upon millions of jobs had to be laid off in order for them to get to that point. And then Biden comes back and says, takes credit. Hey, I created all these new jobs of people that were just going back to work from being furloughed during the COVID. Yes, our unemployment rate is low, but how many of those jobs are the kinds of jobs that either kept up with inflation or are people taking out a second job at this point just to try to get out ahead of this thing, pay some bills, or stay in their houses for that matter, because they're not going to, they're going to get a bunch of inflated dollars out of them if they sell them, but they're not going to be able to get something comparable for the inflated dollars that they have, especially if they've got a large mortgage from trying to buy a house in 2020. When Fareed Zakaria is telling you you're screwed, you might be screwed. I don't know what's going to happen in November. I don't have a crystal ball. There's no Santeria being practiced here, but that is where we are at with that. All right, let's talk about a couple other electioneering things before we get into the lawfare. Joe Biden with a very, very interesting take about who he works for from the Calvin Coolidge project. Let's listen.
My name's Joe Biden. I work for Kamala Harris.
Pretty sure Kamala works for you, number one. And is this a stunning admission, or, is this something we all knew already?
I asked her to be my vice president because I knew I needed somebody smarter than me.
I knew that I needed somebody smarter than me. 80 million votes, folks. 80 million votes. I got an interesting one here, because this has been stealth edited, and you can actually see in the URL. Of course, obviously, if you're listening on the audio platform, you can't see it, but you can see on the URL what this article initially said versus what it says now that they did a stealth edit to it. And I actually archived this, and it had never been archived before, unfortunately, because I wanted to see what it had said initially. I wish somebody would have archived it when it was an initial. Now, the headline that you see on the screen, unless you're on the audio platform, says Trump says not considering Nikki Haley as a running mate, which is a re-report from Reuters to U.S. News and World Report. But if you read the URL, where it says usnews.com/news/top news/articles 2024-05-11. What does it say after the hashtag there? Or I'm sorry, the slash, not the hashtag. Nikki Haley under active consideration by Trump campaign. Well, isn't that interesting? Because the headline that's out here says a completely different story. Now, as far as it goes with this for vice presidents, and that has been a key for me deciding who I would vote for and deciding if I would vote for Trump, because if he puts Nikki Haley up here, that would be just as bad as him putting Pence up. And I was against that decision. I tried to rationalize it with myself at some point, but I was against that decision. If he put Nikki Haley, no, that is an absolutely not. There are a few people under consideration that would be an absolutely not. You guys all know I'm not sold on Tucker. So Tucker would be a no. Kristi Noem, I mean, she's not even going to be actively considered at this point anyway because she shot herself in the foot. Ironically, by shooting a dog. She shot herself in the foot for that one. Rubio, that's a no. DeSantis, that's a no. Everybody knows my feelings on DeSantis. And I've been telling you that since 2020, by the way. That wasn't just a recent thing because, oh my God, he ran for president against Trump. No, I've been against DeSantis since they were actively considering him for 2024. If Big Don won at the time, I said, no, well, you can go into 2024 by yourself because I'm not voting for that man for that year. Let's read a little bit of this, though. Donald Trump said on Saturday that former Republican presidential candidate Nikki Haley was not being considered to be his running mate in the November election, dismissing a report by news site Axios. Nikki Haley is not under consideration for the VP slot, but I wish her well, Trump wrote on the social media platform Truth Social. Citing people familiar with the situation, Axios had reported that Trump could pick Haley if he were convinced she could help him win the presidency, avoid a potential prison sentence, and cover tens of millions in legal bills if he loses. I don't know why in God's name she would ever do anything like that, but apparently she is capable of it. Haley, the former South Carolina governor and former U.S. ambassador to the UN, ended her long-shot challenge to the Republican presidential frontrunner in March. Comment was not immediately available for Haley, while she acknowledged that Trump, who repeatedly belittled her candidacy, that in and of itself actually might get me to vote for him, because that's the last thing we need is Bush in a skirt in the White House. Would be the Republican nominee. Haley has not endorsed him. Boo-hoo. There's already a long list of potential candidates for the vice president position that includes Doug Burgum, which that one I would be okay with. Kristi Noem, who is no longer eligible. Marco Rubio, no. Tim Scott, maybe. J.D. Vance, that one's iffy. And Elise Stefanik, absolutely not. Burgum and Scott competed against Trump for the 2024 nomination before dropping out. Noem has been embroiled in controversy after revealing in a memoir that she once shot a 14-month-old dog for being disobedient. Which, if she'd have just let it be, that would have been just fine in and of itself. But, of course, she had to go and double and triple down on it because she has no idea what to do with the media. Trump is in no hurry to pick a running mate. According to advisors, he will not be formally nominated until the Republican convention in Milwaukee. He will face President Biden in the November 5th general election. Of course, that is if the GOP is not suicidal enough to broker a convention, which is possible, by the way. They might be stupid enough to do that. We don't know. Republicans like to lose for whatever reason. Alright, let's check back with the live chat here. Vaughn says, I know someone who's economically better off right now than in 2019. That person is me. Well, you also got out of college in that time, too. I will come completely and admit to that. And I've known you for that long, so I know that that's the case. Because I made good financial decisions between then and now, and also got to an age where you can enter the full-time workforce. That's also a very, very good thing working in your favor right now. I'm not going to say the age, but I know what it is. And you got to a point where full-time workforce is right for you. All right, what else do we have here? Oh, speaking of articles where people are coming out and saying, oh my God, the world will end. If we nominate him, the world will end. Buzz Patterson Xing out yet another reason to vote for him. And I'm going to tell you that I'm actually not in favor of this. I know a lot of people are. I know that if my friend Seawall were watching right now, he'd be furiously typing in the comment section, stop making him sound more base than he actually is. I don't know how that sounded on the microphone, but in my own ears, that actually sounded pretty close to what Seawall's voice sounds like. Trump is planning to send kill teams to Mexico and take out cartel leaders. Now, they didn't give the Rolling Stone article, they just gave a screenshot of it. And this is something that I berated both Haley and DeSantis for at the same time. And I think that's where, because I have not seen anything that was brought forward from Team Trump talking about going in and taking out cartel leaders in Mexico. If they're over here, all bets are off. Because you're facing down the Trump DOJ, and I mean, you'll have to go through our regular court system and everything else with that. But if you're talking about going into a foreign country and doing this, and fully admittedly, Trump is not shy about this, Soleimani, but that is an act of war on a neighboring country, on a foreign country. Given the fact that we went 4 years without a major war being started, I would be careful executing people extrajudicially in a foreign nation, especially if they are nationals of that foreign nation. There are a few people I don't think that would go over very well with. But again, I don't necessarily believe that he's going to do that. It's actually real, though. Well, the belief in it's real here. The Daily Mail backing this up here. Trump to send U.S. Special Forces to hit squads in Mexico to assassinate drug cartel leaders in the second term, according to sources. Unnamed sources, of course, which would be Mogwai's cat. Unnamed sources. From Rob Crilly. Donald Trump is considering sending special operations teams into Mexico to kill the heads of drug cartels if he retakes the White House. According to a new report citing 3 sources familiar with his thinking. During his 4 years in office, he pondered whether it would be possible to launch missile strikes on cartel operations. Once again, reminder, you are committing an act of aggression on an allied and neighboring country that knows very, very well how to get over your border. Just keep that in mind. I want these people gone too, but there are avenues to do it. And with the threat of drugs smuggled across the southern border only increasing since then, is now publicly campaigning on a platform that includes using covert means to hurt the gangs responsible. Trump is said to be modeling his thinking on the successful 2019 military raid that he ordered to kill Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, and Soleimani, by the way. One thing to keep in mind, though, and I disagreed with al-Baghdadi. Well, al-Baghdadi, not so much. Soleimani, yes. Is that we were in active combat. Still, we hadn't ended active combat with the nations involved. Soleimani, we were not in active combat with that nation, but where he was hit, we were in allied position with. And he was a foreign national in. Doesn't make it right, but now we're actually going and taking, now he's proposing, if this is actually true, remember these are anonymous sources, going into an actual foreign nation and killing citizens of a foreign nation. Doesn't matter what the Mexican government thinks of these people, whether they're afraid of them, allied with them, or otherwise. They are tasked as a government to protect them first. I'm going to tell you what to do on foreign policy. I'm just telling you to keep that in mind. If any of this is actually real, which I don't believe. Let's talk about the rally. From the USA Today, gloves are off. Trump attacks Biden, sweeping criminal charges at raucous New Jersey rally. Alright, what do we have here? Alright, practice about to start, so I gotta go. Take care. Enjoy your practice. I hope you come back afterwards. I don't think we'll still be going, actually. Because we're at 7 right now. And I try to keep this wrapped up at 8. Doesn't always happen, but I try to. Zach Anderson. Angered by his criminal indictments, former President Trump declared Saturday during a campaign rally that the gloves are off and promised brutal election against President Brandon, one centered on rooting out what he called America's enemies from within. It's another phrase that I don't really care for in our political statement because I'm not a fan, no matter what it is that they say, of calling our fellow citizens enemies of the state. We're not Democrats, we don't do that. Again, no matter what it is that they themselves think of our country. It was another sign that the election is on a dark path, even as Trump was often lighthearted during the nearly 90-minute speech to a raucous Wildwood, New Jersey crowd numbering in the tens of thousands. Zach. We saw the video, we took the census count, it was over 100,000. There were over 100,000 people in attendance to that one. I know you don't want to say that out loud. This is not like the Waukesha rally that Vong and I went to. We tried to film from, but extenuating circumstances kept us from doing so. Trump boasted about drawing bigger crowds than Bruce Springsteen, a favorite son of the state, claiming he will win New Jersey despite it going for Biden by 16 points in 2020, and joked about eating a hot dog because it's among foods least affected by inflation. The big, boisterous rally was a show of force in a blue state, and at a time when Trump is on trial, just a few hours away in New York City, in a case stemming from hush money payments to an adult film actress. Trump fans from across New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and New York packed the beach in a popular Jersey Shore town. You think Snooki was there? Crowding onto a stretch of sand bordered by amusement rides on two sides, the ocean on one, and a boardwalk with shops and carnival games on the other. Trump spoke in front of a giant Ferris wheel, roller coaster, water slide, and other rides. The former president injected his mix of increasingly apocalyptic rhetoric into the festival atmosphere. Will Trump win Jersey? I don't think so. I'm going to come right out and say I don't think that's a possibility. Will he do better than he did in 2020? I do think that's almost a guarantee. I don't think he's got enough momentum to take Jersey. That is a pretty blue state. But I bet he can get it within 5. That is my official prediction right now, just seeing the trajectory of everything else is going. I bet he can get it within 5. Which, after a showing of 16 points for Biden the year before, or the election before, that's massive, especially for deep blue New Jersey. And some of this rally shows it too. Now, if I was a Democrat and a strategist for the Democrat Party, what he did in Jersey with the crowd and speculating whether or not he could win Jersey would be useless. Because remember, we had some of these people coming from deep blue Jersey and deep blue New York, coming from upstate, of course. But those are deep blue strongholds that, while he will probably do better than the past, in both of them, he is most likely not going to win. What would worry me as a Democrat strategist, especially if they're saying the crowds are coming from that state, is Pennsylvania, which is in play. And was one of the key swing states in both 2016 and 2020. That's what would have me start to have my chest pumping and looking for my anti-anxiety meds if I was a Democrat strategist. You can sit here and fawn and say, could he win New Jersey? Could he win this? Could he win that? Pennsylvania is right there and is in play. The election is still Hong Kong fortified for election. They haven't done any major defortification laws to it. But if the enthusiasm is there, it's right there, and people were crossing the state line to come to this rally. So that's what would make me start to be concerned. It'd be like if we went and spoke in Iowa, in Dubuque, and 100,000 people came over from Wisconsin to go see it, which is also a state that's in play right now. A lot to think about with this one here. Fox News saying the same thing. White House should be concerned as Trump rallies as many as 100,000 in Deep Blue, New Jersey. Well, we will see. All right. We filibustered away from it long enough. It's time for lawfare. And we're going to start with the trials that are failing right now. Starting with Georgia. Kyle Cheney, with the X, just in Georgia appeals court, has agreed to consider Trump's appeal of the ruling rejecting Fani Willis's disqualification from his criminal case. This is almost certain to significantly delay the potential trial, which was already unsettled. Now, we have a PDF of the filing. But Mr. Becker also pulled a screenshot of it for those of us who don't have a PDF reader. Court of Appeals to the State of Georgia. Donald John Trump et al. Versus the state upon consideration of the application for the interlocutor. I'm going to mess that word up. Watch me. And this is me considering going back to law school. I'm going to mess that word up. Upon consideration of the application for the interlocutory appeal, it is ordered that it be hereby granted. The appellant may file a notice of appeal within 10 days of the date of this order. The Clerk of Superior Court is directed to include a copy of this order in the record transmitted to the Court of Appeals. What does this mean? Fani Willis, and we talked about this when this was going on, committed a very, very, very big conflict of interest as the lead attorney for the state, hiring the prosecutor who's going to come back and prosecute this, and in the midst also banging him and paying him well more money than a person of that position typically makes. Possibly sharing in this and possibly laundering taxpayer money that will have yet to be proven in any sort of court. There's suspicion given the relationship, but all suspects are innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. And the initial judge in the appeal of having her taken off the first time said that either she or Wade had to be off the case. One of them could stay on, but the other one had to go because of the romantic relationship, which would have disbarred somebody if they were in any position other than government work. If you did what Fani Willis did in private practice, you wouldn't even have a law license anymore at that point. Even for making it seem like there's corruption off there, most law partners would just say, pack your things and get out. This is more headache than we want. Now, will she get thrown off the case? I don't know. If she does, it's over. Because Republican Brad Raffensperger picks her replacement. And it will also, that would be the interesting side of that. Because Raffensperger was actually involved in this, and I would almost say that there's a conflict of interest with that as well. I think Kemp might actually be the one that picks this. Let's read from NBC News, archived. Georgia Appeals Court grants Trump's... really? I tripped up over those words. Georgia Appeals Court grants Trump's request to consider whether Fani Willis should be disqualified in his criminal case. From Charlie Guile and Rebecca Shabbat. Georgia State Court of Appeals said Wednesday that it will consider an appeal from former President Trump challenging the decision not to disqualify Fani Willis as the district attorney overseeing the 2016 election interference charges against him. The order said that Trump can file a notice of appeal within the next 10 days. A lawyer for Trump, Steve Sadow, said in a statement that the former president looks forward to arguing before the appeals court that the case should be dismissed and Willis be disqualified for her misconduct in this unjustified, unwarranted political persecution. It's the worst persecution. Okay. Nobody's been treated worse than me. The worst thing. Absolutely worst. The judge presiding over the case, Scott McAfee, ruled in March that Willis shouldn't be disqualified from the prosecuting Trump and his co-defendants, despite their allegation that I lost my place. That she had a conflict of interest in the case. They accused Willis of misconduct, alleging she financially benefited from her relationship with Special Prosecutor Nathan Wade, which led to days of testimony in court about their romance. McAfee ultimately found the appearance of impropriety created by their personal relationship should result in either Willis or Wade leaving the case hours later. Willis's offers confirmed Wade had resigned and she had accepted his resignation. So, how will this go? I don't know. I don't know who's hearing this right now. But this will go above and beyond McAfee and into the appellate court. It'd be interesting to see. I don't understand why we feel such a need to always put our nose in other people's stuff. Crap, we've been doing that since Eisenhower. That's a foreign policy that seems so stuck from president to president. Yes, and that's a policy that I am staunchly against. By the way, I'm very isolationist. Sadly, I think Wisconsin is going to Trump, not that my opinion matters. I think it is too. I'm more interested, honestly, not in the Trump race, but I am most interested in the Baldwin race, Baldwin-Hovde. Because Ron Johnson won an election 2 years ago that he should not have won. There was way too much stuff stacked against him. He should not have won that, and he walked away with that one. The world revolves around sex. Well, the problem with that, and we've seen this time and time again, in political prosecutions, both for and against, is the fact that if there is some sort of impropriety going somewhere, whether it be money or perjury or something else, one of the people involved is usually banging the other person involved in some way or another. There are people to this day that think that Bill Clinton was impeached for getting a blowjob. Bill Clinton was impeached for lying under oath to the court. Perjury. But our news media continually tell the word that it was because stuffed shirt Republicans were mad at him for having fun in the Oval Office. And Clinton did good things in office. Some of them were mostly led by his Republican House at the time, and because of Newt Gingrich. But I will not deny what Bill Clinton did right in the situation he was in. Ilhan Omar, outside of the brother-husband thing that I don't think we've ever had any closure from, she divorced the husband that may or may not have been her brother, skirting immigration law, and went out and immediately married her campaign advisor. That her campaign was funneling millions of dollars into his contract for, that she now has half of free and clear. I wish them the best. I hope they're happy. But that's pretty shady. And again, with Willis, it's not about the sex. They can bang each other on every flat surface in the Atlanta courthouse. It's the fact that she was also paying him well above the pay rate of a prosecutor to prosecute this case, and was probably getting kickbacks from it. There's money involved, and it's taxpayer money. But again, the news media has made it all about sex. All about the fact that the two of them were banging. Which, given the positions that they were both in, was probably not a smart thing to do. Let's read from WSB TV 2 out of Atlanta. More co-defendants file appeals to have Fani Willis removed from Georgia election case from Scott Flynn. Several other co-defendants in the Georgia election case, because remember, this is a RICO case. They rounded up as many people as they could to throw charges at them, hoping that one of them would flip and sing like a canary. Have filed their own appeals over the ruling that allowed the Fulton County DA to stay the case, and are asking that Fani Willis be removed from the case. Mark Meadows, Giuliani, Kathy Latham, and Michael Roman all filed an appeal on Monday in the case. They now join former President Trump and Georgia GOP head David Schaefer in appealing the ruling. So, and I mean, if I was in that position, I would too. You'd line up a bunch of people from the very top to every low-level staffer who might have accidentally brushed into the top defendant in the hallway. Throw charges at all of them, and then hope one of them sings and says, "Please, please don't send me to prison." That's exactly what this case is, too, as are most mob cases. So this is on indefinite hold right now. We will see what happens with that, but likely we won't see this one before at least the nomination, if not Election Day. On to the documents case from Politico. We talked a little bit about this last week, so I'm only going to briefly touch on this portion of the story before we talk about the suspension of the case. Docs in boxes seized from Mar-a-Lago were inadvertently jumbled. We talked a bit about this last week. Now, of course, our friends on the left believe that this picture here, if you're listening on the audio platform, it's the infamous bathroom picture with the filing boxes, is evidence that there are classified documents there. Documents that they have never seen with their own eyes. From Josh Gerstein and Kyle Cheney. Jack Smith's team acknowledged Friday that some evidence in the prosecution of former President Trump for hoarding classified documents at his Florida home may not be in the same sequence FBI agents found it when they swept Mar-a-Lago compound with a search warrant in August of 2022. The concession from prosecutors in a court filing Friday came after attorneys for one of Trump's co-defendants asked for a delay in the case because the defense lawyers were having trouble determining precisely where particular documents had come from in the 33 boxes the FBI seized almost 2 years ago. In their filing, prosecutors acknowledged the government had previously and incorrectly told the U.S. District Judge Eileen Cannon that the boxes remained in their original intact form as seized, other than a decision to replace classified documents with placeholder sheets. That depiction the prosecutors conceded is inconsistent with their current understanding that some of the documents are not now in the same order as they appear in digital scans of the records that were made in the fall of 2022. Why is this important? You're already going to have a massively difficult time prosecuting this case. Because in order to see any evidence whatsoever, now the American people are never going to be able to see evidence in this case. It's classified. We don't know what's in these documents. They have been telling us breathlessly up and down for 2 years that they were nuclear secrets of both ours and foreign nations, but nobody's ever seen the documents. The American people, the people watching at home, are never going to be able to see the documents. The jury, it's going to be a nightmare to find people who can both be impartial, a jury of peers, and get security clearance sufficient to see the documents, be vetted in time to do so, if they're even allowed to see any of them at all. For all we know, and the government does overclassify, these could be a major nuclear secret about our arsenal, which I can't believe the government would have changed at that point. Or it could be Melania's chicken Kiev recipe. Prosecuting this case is hard enough. with reasonable doubt being the standard for our justice system. But now, with them being jumbled and out of order, now we've also got to contend with the fact that with classification being so sensitive, do we know if the documents were actually in the boxes or if this was something that the government planted? Jack Smith's people screwed themselves on this one. Hard. In a rookie mistake that a first-year law student wouldn't make. This is such a dumb mistake. I almost question whether or not it was done on purpose to get Eileen Cannon to throw the case or dismiss the case out so they can scream, "MAGA judge in the payment of Donald Trump!" Because seasoned prosecutors don't do this for a reason. They don't make mistakes like this. That's legitimately the only thing I can wrap my mind around with the fact that this happened like this. Is that they were trying to show Eileen Cannon as in the tank and in the payroll of Trump. I can't. Paralegals don't make this mistake, folks. You expect me to believe that a prosecution team that supposedly has a 99.999% conviction rate makes these mistakes? Really? And yes, this is indefinitely postponed at this point. Federal judge indefinitely postpones Trump classified documents trial. From Caitlin Palance. Hannah Rabinovitz, Holmes Lybrand, and Tierney Sneed. Judge Eileen Cannon has indefinitely postponed former President Trump's classified documents trial in Florida, citing significant issues found around classified evidence that would need to be worked out before the federal crime goes to a jury. In an order Tuesday, Cannon canceled the May trial date and did not set a new date while Trump was in criminal court on Tuesday for his hush money trial in New York. We'll talk about that in just a moment. Cannon's move means there are no trial dates currently set for the other 3 criminal cases against him. By indefinitely postponing the classified documents trial, Cannon's order pushes it closer to the 2024 election and potentially afterwards. The judge's new schedule lays out all the legal disputes that Cannon must decide before a jury could hear the case. Cannon said that process will take at least until late July of this year. Cannon noted in her Tuesday order that there are 8 substantive pending motions that she's yet to decide. She also reiterated that she believes the national security mishandling allegations in the case present novel and difficult questions. Once again, the standard of justice in this country is reasonable doubt. It's not whether or not you can prove your innocence, which I do believe in this case. Our former president is innocent. I believe that he had the legal authority to have these documents. And I don't believe what's in them because I've never seen them. I can't see them. But regardless of guilt or innocence, all suspects are innocent until proven guilty beyond a reasonable doubt by a jury of one's peers. Little slip-ups like this screw everything up, and Jack Smith's team has nobody but themselves to blame for it. Alright. Now on to the big one. Alright. Palm says, leave it to federal law enforcement to mess up their own case. Shot themselves in the foot. Yes, you should believe it. Oh, the Mogwai has joined us. Yeah, I almost believe that they tanked this on purpose. Just to come back out and blame Cannon for it going away. Now I hear Mario background music. I don't remember what it was when that one popped up. And actually, I don't know what the Island Getaway music is. The song title is called Island Getaway by DJ Cutman and Family Jewels. I don't know what it's from, though. I know what this one's from. That's from Zelda, the fairy phone. The Mogwai has joined us and says, I've seen them. They were the 11 herbs and spices. That's why they're classified. Alright, let's talk about what's happening in New York, which is also seeming to go off the rails. We'll read a little bit of this first, and then I'll tell you how I could end this trial in 2 seconds. Charlie Kirk. Yes, I know, cringe. Trump expertly avoids violating Mercan's unconstitutional gag order by using the left's own words against him. He pulls out a piece of paper and reads quotes from CNN and other news outlets on what they are saying about the case. Full disclosure, I have not listened to this clip in advance, so I'm going to be hearing this for the first time with you. Let's listen.
We're going to take you to Lower Manhattan and former President Trump.
Let's roll that back
victim of
first.
extortion?
The country is on fire. There are protests all over the country. I've never seen anything like this. Many graduation ceremonies are being canceled. They're canceled, as you know, in Colombia. They're canceling a lot of them. And we have a president that just refuses to talk because he can't talk. You know that. So does everyone else. Some of the statements made about this witch hunt on CNN, fake news CNN, Michael Moore said the proof of falsifying records has not been accomplished. On Good Morning America, they said, we heard that expense payments to lawyers are legal expenses. You pay a lawyer expense payments. We didn't put it down as construction costs, the purchase of sheetrock, the electrical cost. The legal expense that we paid was put down as legal expense. There's nothing else you could say. You don't have to put down anything, I guess. But we put down legal expense was legal expense. Is that a correct statement, Mr. Attorney? And everyone's saying, oh, gee, that's the fraud. That's what they're trying to get us on. The fact that we call a legal expense a legal expense. They marked it down in the books. The check was signed. And the other thing, this was approved by all agencies. Everybody saw this. There was nothing being hidden at all. That's what they're all writing now. There's been nothing hidden. And it went through agencies, and I guess it went through the IRS also. It went through IRS. It went through the FEC. It went through everything. Also, NBC Today showed the challenges that there is no smoking gun, no email or tape to prove the president's intent. They don't have a way to prove that. That's NBC Today show. And then Fox News, Katie Kasky, said that the gag order is unconstitutional, which of course it is. The gag order is unconstitutional. So with all that's going on, they have no case. Every single legal scholar that I see, I mean, maybe there's somebody out there, some whack job, but for virtually everyone that I've seen has said there's absolutely no case. It's a case that shouldn't have been brought. The previous DA wouldn't bring it. Bragg didn't want to bring it, and he brought it because I'm running in number one place. This all comes out of the White House and crooked Joe Biden. This comes from the White House, and it's all Biden because it's an attack on his political opponent. That hasn't happened in this country. It does happen in third world countries, but it hasn't happened in this country, and it's a shame. And the trial is a very unfair trial. It's a very, very unfair trial. The good news is they have nothing. Thank you.
Why is it unfair? The good news is they have nothing. Nothing. No more. Mogwai says, is paying off your side piece, is that a legal expense? Also, is that tax deductible as a business expense? Asking for a friend. Also, is gag, whips, and leather for your dom? Is that tax deductible? Asking for a U.S. Senator. We'll be talking about that, Senator, a little bit later. I know we're running up on the clock right now, but yeah, going back and using CNN's words against them. Now, as far as this trial goes, and I put this on X the other day, if you want to be realistic about what you're seeing here, I could end this trial in 2 seconds. It would probably take closer to a minute by the time everything was shuffled around, everybody was sworn in and everything else. Are you ready? Your Honor, I call lead prosecutor Alvin Bragg to the stand. This is me acting as a Trump defense attorney. Put your hand on the Bible. No, don't burst into flames, please. You swear. Yes, 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 and yes. Okay, Mr. Bragg, you have alleged that the upgrade of these charges, which are normally misdemeanors, to felonies, bypassing the statute of limitations, is because they are used in the commission of another crime. Yes, sir, that's true. Mr. Bragg, is the other crime being committed? I'm sorry. Is the other crime being tried right now? No, we're not trying him for campaign and finance violation. Your Honor, the defense rests, please. That's it. That's the end of it. Even with me tripping over my words. Trump allies flocked to New York City to say what he can't. Because, hey, these people still have the freedom of speech. From Kiera Frazier. With Trump barred from publicly commenting on witness testimony in the hush money trial, he's letting his Republican friends do the talking and attacking for him. On Monday, former Trump attorney Michael Cohen faced ridicule from Trump's entourage visiting the courthouse, including J.D. Vance and Tommy Tuberville, both U.S. senators, as the prosecution's star witness led his first day on the stand. This guy is a convicted felon who admitted in his testimony that he secretly recorded his former employer, that he only did it once allegedly, and that this was supposed to help Trump. Vance told reporters outside the courthouse, "Does any reasonable, sensible person believe anything that Michael Cohen says?" Well, he's a lawyer, so even if he hadn't been convicted for lying to the Senate, no, I wouldn't believe a word that he says. He's a lawyer. Remember the line in the beginning of Liar, Liar? When the kids were explaining what it was that their parents did, and little Max came up and said, "My mom's a teacher, she helps kids and everything, and my dad's a liar." He gets up and dresses up in a suit and goes and talks to the judge. "Oh, you mean a lawyer?" Truer words have never been spoken. Cohen, Trump's former fixer turned foe, is at the center of the trial, as the person who prosecutors hope will directly tie the former president to the $130,000 hush money payment to Stormy Daniels. Under the gag order imposed by Merchan in March, Trump cannot publicly comment on the witnesses, jurors, and others in the case, though he's not prohibited from criticizing the judge or prosecutors. Merchan held Trump in contempt for violating a gag order for the 10th time last week and warned future violations could bring him jail time. The former president at times has been visibly angry during the testimony from Daniels and Cohen, including huffing, rolling his eyes, and shaking his head, but Trump hasn't directly violated the gag order since the judge threatened jail time, which is surprising because that would probably help his campaign. While disparaging Cohen, Trump's surrogates said that they were at the courthouse as friends, supporting the president. Rep. Nicole Malliotakis, Iowa Attorney General Brenna Byrd, and Alabama AG Steve Marshall were also on hand. "We got a courtroom. This is the most depressing thing I've ever been in," Tuberville said. Mental anguish is trying to be pushed on a Republican candidate for the President of the United States. Vivek Ramaswamy, who competed for the GOP nomination before dropping out of the contest, is set to attend a court with Trump, a spokesperson told Politico. Why? But that is what happens with that. From Fox, Trump blasts conflicted judge after first day of Cohen testimony. Let's look over this here. Mock says, "Did I hear J. Edgar say go to New York and end the trial?" He thinks he could end it. Should he seriously contemplate law school? Mike Johnson went to help Trump get away from Marjorie Taylor Greene, the plant. And Liar Liar, the dad was a liar. That's true. But he got redeemed. All right. Trump says the whole world is laughing at weaponized legal system. Former Trump once again lashed out against the criminal trial against him in New York, arguing political rivals have weaponized the legal system in a bid to interrupt and damage his presidential campaign. This is truly going to go down as a day of infamy for the New York legal system, which is through the whole world, is laughing right now at the New York weaponized legal system. Watching this unfold of that courtroom as a lawyer is really deeply disturbing, Trump said after the day's proceedings had wrapped up. I mean, where's the lie? I mean, I don't think the whole world's laughing right now, but there's a reason that we haven't done this in 240 years. All right, the testimony. What to know about Trump's fixer-turned-foe Michael Cohen's pivotal testimony in the hush money trial. From Michael Sisak, Jal Colvin, Lindsay Whitehurst, and Alana Durkin-Richer. Once Trump's loyal attorney and fixer, Michael Cohen. Jesus. The editorialization. Really? Did we need that? It's a court report, not a Stephen King novel. Pointed the finger at his former boss on Monday in a pivotal testimony about hush money payments at the center of the first criminal trial of a former American president. Cohen provided jurors with an insider's account of payments to silence a woman's claim of sexual encounters with Trump, saying the payments were directed by Trump to fend off damage to his 2016 White House bid. Cohen is expected to be on the witness stand for several days and face intense grilling by attorneys who have painted him as a liar who's trying to take him down or take down the presumptive nominee. No, he's trying to get a pardon, is what he's trying to do. Who dug up Bango and made him a courtroom artist? Yeah, the courtroom art has just been crazy. Alright, here's some takeaways from Cohen's testimony so far. Just do it. Cohen tied Trump directly to the hush money scheme, recounting meetings and conversations with his then boss about stiffing negative stories on the waning weeks of the 2016 campaign. He expressed to me, just do it, Cohen said about the $130,000 payment to actress Stormy Daniels, who was threatening to go public with claims of a sexual encounter with Trump a decade earlier. Trump denies they ever had sex. I want to touch on that for just a second. I've said this about E. Jean Carroll. I've said this about Tara Reid and Joe Biden. I've said this about... Why can I not think of his name? Kavanaugh. I was going to say, I could see his face. I couldn't think of his name. I've said this about Kavanaugh. Nobody knows what happened in that room, in that hotel room, except for Donald John Trump and Stephanie Clifford, Stormy Daniels. Those are the only two people that actually know what happened in that room. The rest of us can speculate. We can decide and listen to testimony and make the decision what we believe and what we don't believe. It will mostly be based on partisanship and who we want to lead the country and the free world. Nobody knows what happened in the hallway with Tara Reid and Joe Biden. Nobody knows what happened with Brett Kavanaugh. Nobody knows what happened in the Bergdorf dressing room. Except for the two people who were involved at the time. Someone's smoke detector is going off. But again, this trial has nothing to do with whether or not they did it. It's about whether or not the payments violated campaign finance law, which is not being charged. Less than 2 weeks before the election, Cohen finalized the payments to buy Daniels' silence. Immediately, he went to Trump to inform him the deal was done. He testified. The task he gave to me was finished, accomplished, and done, Cohen testified before pointing to a second reason for updating his boss. To take credit for myself so that he knew that I had done it, finished it because it was important. About another story of an alleged affair with Karen McDougal, Cohen said Trump told him, "Just make sure it doesn't get released." Cohen testified that he personally had no interest in acquiring the rights to McDougal's story, telling jurors, "What I was doing was at the direction and benefit of Mr. Trump." Trump also denies having an affair with McDougal. Again, nobody knows except for Trump and McDougal. The rest of us can speculate. And our decision will mostly come on partisan decisions. But the only two people who know are Trump and McDougal. Cohen also recounted going to Trump after learning about a Trump Tower doorman who claimed falsely Trump had a child out of wedlock. Cohen described being angry he wasn't initially reimbursed for the Daniels hush money payment. Eventually, he met with Trump and then Trump Organization CFO Alan Weisselberg in Trump Tower to discuss the debt owed to him, Cohen told jurors there. Weisselberg informed Cohen the reimbursements would be paid as legal services in monthly installments, he testified. That's important because the 34 counts of false business records Trump is charged with stem from paperwork such as invoices and checks that were deemed legal expenses in company records. Prosecutors say those payments largely were reimbursements to Cohen for Daniels' hush money payment. I would call that reasonable doubt right then and there. Because it kind of sounds to me like Cohen just did whatever he had to out of his own pocket and then demanded the money back. If there is campaign finance violation, Michael Cohen committed it. Cohen testified that Trump feared Daniels' story would be a disaster for the campaign, which was already reeling at the time from the release of the Access Hollywood tape, to which Trump boasted about grabbing women sexually without their permission. Okay. I have listened to that tape more times than I am proud of. Since that fateful day. The words, "they let you," not only imply, but outright say that he did it with their permission. Was it sleazy? Yes. When you're a star, they'll let you do anything. That does not imply without permission. That testimony could be key for prosecutors who are trying to prove that Trump schemed to illegally influence the 2016 race by bearing unflattering stories that could damage his campaign. Cohen spoke in glowing terms about his early days working for Trump, telling jurors he was surprised and honored when the former president first offered him a job. Cohen said he and Trump were close in the decade before Cohen worked for him, that the two spoke in person by phone multiple times every single day. Cohen did everything from talking to the media to renegotiating bills on Trump's behalf, including outstanding invoices from 50 vendors of Trump's failed Trump University project. The praise he got from Trump afterwards made him feel like he was on top of the world, he told jurors. I don't know, man. Everything I've read out of this article kind of says that Cohen committed campaign finance violations. But the big one this week was the Stormy Daniels testimony. Reading from the Washington Post, why Stormy Daniels' testimony could fuel an appeal and whether it matters. From the sounds of it, the two people in the legacy media who are talking about the Daniels testimony are pretty pissed about it. From Shayna Jacobs. Stormy Daniels' testimony last week about an alleged unwanted sexual event in Trump's criminal trial brought to mind stories of other women who, in the witness stand in the same courthouse, have said they were raped and sexually assaulted. It was a striking development in a case about documents that Trump allegedly misclassified in an effort to hide evidence of a hush money payment. Some legal experts say they were shocked that the trial judge allowed such potentially damaging testimony into a low-level felony case, focused on whether records were manipulated. Other experts say the testimony was relevant and important to the case. Trump's attorneys failed twice to persuade Supreme Court Justice Juan Merchan to grant a mistrial because of the graphic testimony from the adult film stars. If Trump is convicted, his lawyers could appeal Merchan's ruling, but that process can take years and there's a very high bar for overturning a jury's finding of guilt. With Trump on track to become the Republican nominee, even a successful appeal could have little impact. He faces a maximum sentence of 1 1/3 to 4 years in prison, but it's possible for him to get a sentence that includes no incarceration or only a short stint in jail. That means any appeal could be decided long after Trump completes his sentence, and he would either have been elected to a second term in the White House, or if he loses this year's election, could be retired from politics. It is possible, however, for the judge to stay the execution of his sentence until the appeal is over. A defendant's right to a fair trial is fundamental to the criminal cases and the justice system. Judges are responsible for striking a balance, sometimes delicate pursuit, and refereeing which details can be introduced through testimony and exhibits. Merchan has barred prosecutors from telling jurors that Trump's alleged affair with Karen McDougal overlapped with his wife's pregnancy. Jurors have not heard about the other women who say they endured sexual misconduct from Trump. But Merchan's ruling that prosecutors should limit the details offered by Daniels did not keep her from offering myriad details about the alleged encounter, which Trump says did not happen. The case, which is years in the making, is remarkable because it's the first time a U.S. president or presidential candidate has been tried for crimes. It could also be Trump's only trial before the November election, even though he is indicted in 3 other cases accused of serious election integrity and national security violations. A successful appeal can depend on whether there's a clear record of defense objections and arguments. Over Trump's second mistrial motion last week, Merchan criticized the Trump lawyer for not objecting as frequently as she could have during Daniels' testimony because, again, it was a train wreck, including when the witness was asked if Trump used a condom for protection. She testified that he did not, and it was upsetting to her. Some of Daniels' testimony had distinct echoes of what accusers said about disgraced film producer Harvey Weinstein, who was convicted in the same courtroom in 2020 of rape and sexual assault. So, a lot of stuff going with that. I want to read one from the Daily Wire, and then we'll listen to Dershowitz break down why this was important. Stormy Daniels gave disastrous testimony in Trump trial, CNN legal analyst says, from Daniel Chaitin. CNN legal analyst Ellie Honig said Stormy Daniels gave disastrous response during her appearance on Tuesday at former President Trump's hush money trial. During a segment on CNN with other legal experts, Honig offered his take on the testimony, which included Stormy Daniels discussing her alleged hotel tryst with Trump that the former president has denied. While he contended that Daniels was believable when it came to the claim, Honig argued the cross-examination could spell trouble for prosecutors. The cross-exam boy, her responses were disastrous. I mean, do you hate Trump? Yes. Of course she does. That's a big deal. When the witness hates the person whose liberty is at stake, that's a big damn deal. During the cross, Daniels said yes after being asked if she hated Trump. When pressed on whether she wants Trump to go to jail, Daniels said she wants him to be held accountable. And if he's found guilty, absolutely. She also faced questions about tweets suggesting she does not want to pay $500,000 in legal fees to Trump after a failed defamation lawsuit. Let's listen to what Dershowitz has to say about this one here. Charlie Kirk again. Alan Dershowitz breaks down why Daniels' disastrous testimony yesterday could have doomed the prosecution's entire case. There was a clear reversible error committed by the judge and by the prosecution. I can't imagine how the Court of Appeals in New York that reversed the Harvey Weinstein conviction, which was a harder case to reverse, wouldn't reverse this if it got there. Let's listen.
Well, first of all, it was clear reversible error today committed by the judge and by the prosecution under the reasoning of the recently reversed Harvey Weinstein case. So much information came out that was utterly irrelevant. Let's start with whether they had sex at all. Utterly irrelevant. The only issue is whether she threatened to expose him and whether she extorted him and whether he then paid money to avoid the embarrassment to his family, to his business, to his children, and, according to the prosecution, to help himself get reelected. The issue of what actually happened is utterly irrelevant. And then we get to the details, the silk pajamas, the kind of lotion he was wearing. I can't imagine how the Court of Appeals in New York that reversed the Harvey Weinstein conviction, which was a harder case to reverse, wouldn't reverse this conviction if it got up there. I would certainly recommend to the prosecutors in this case that they study the Weinstein case very carefully, because it gives a roadmap to what you can't do. And this prosecutor is just following the roadmap of what you can't do.
Yeah, none of the detail, and I'm actually a little bit confused why Daniels was brought up to testify at all. Honestly, I've been confused about that since the beginning. This is a campaign finance, even though that's not being charged, trial, and a business records trial. And there are instances out there too, and we've seen some of this before with Elon Musk, where somebody comes back and makes the allegation, and somebody just comes out and says, okay, well, here's $1 million, let's not talk about it. Not because the person actually did it, but because going through an extended trial of he said, she said, isn't typically worth the rich and powerful person's time. Us poor people can't go through with stuff like that, but the rich and powerful just don't want to get it dragged to the courtroom. And again, that's whether or not the two of them did it. And the only two people who will ever know are the people who were in that room. I keep that standard for everybody, Democrat, Republican, or otherwise. Bill Maher as well. Liberal comedian Bill Maher slammed Stormy Daniels this week for her testimony during a criminal trial against former President Trump. Maher, who made the remarks on his HBO show Real Time, said that Daniels was a bad witness and played clips of his 2018 interview. Let's listen.
I mean, the Democrats have had 4 years to put Trump on trial, and it is all just going away. They blew it at every turn. Here's what's happened this week. Georgia, that one, okay. They're going to take up Trump's argument about Fani Willis. Now, she's the prosecutor. She's having an affair with the guy she hired. I mean, it's not really relevant to the case, but they left an opening. And now that one's going to be delayed. The stolen documents one, that's never going to happen because that's a Trumpy judge down there. So it's Stormy or bust.
I saw what you did there.
It just comes out. I'm not trying. If this one doesn't work, and she's a bad witness, because let me show you a little video. This is when I had Stormy on in 2018, and first I asked her why she had sex with Trump. Listen to that, and then listen to what she says after that, and then we're going to talk about the trial, because it's quite at variance of what she said to me in 2018. Why did you fuck Donald Trump?
I have no idea.
Okay, but you say it's not a Me Too case.
It is not a Me Too case. I mean, I wasn't assaulted. I wasn't attacked or raped or coerced or blackmailed. They tried to shove me in the Me Too box to further their own agenda. And first of all, I didn't want any part of that because it's not the truth, and I'm not a victim in that regard.
That's not what she's saying now. She's talking about he was bigger and blocking the way. It's all the Me Too buzzwords. She said there was a power imbalance of power, for sure. My hands were shaking so hard. She said she blacked out. Blacked out? She's a porn star. I don't think sex...
That doesn't mean she's been subjected to the likes of Donald Trump. I might black out too.
Do you really think she blacked out? I mean, a porn star is used to having sex with people she does not know. That's the job. It's kind of like Stormy Bob Stormy. Fuck. Action, and let's go, and we're losing the light. So I just think she's not a good witness, and this is...
You know, as much as I can't stand Bill Maher, he does get some wood on the ball every once in a while. All right, let's switch gears to the other side of the aisle. We're going to run a little bit long tonight, but we had an 8th day in our news cycle today. Biden plans executive order to shut down border once crossing reached 4,000 per day, despite saying he needs Congress to act. Do you know why? Because this was in his purview the entire time. But if he doesn't do anything and says he needs Congress with a Republican majority, then he can come back and campaign on it. Yes, this was always in his purview to do so. He deliberately didn't use his purview to do so. Kyle Becker reporting, the Biden admin is now under investigation for election interference, based on new evidence of illegal coordination between the DOJ and political prosecutors bringing charges against former President Trump. The DOJ has been instructed to hand over activity and or communications between Alvin Bragg, Letitia James, Jack Smith, or Fannie Willis related to the investigation or prosecution of the former president in FOIA demands from Andrew Bailey. I'm demanding the DOJ turn over communications relating to the illicit prosecutions of President Trump, AG Bailey said. The problem is it's not going to go anywhere. Joe Biden is the sitting president of the United States. For any crime that he commits right now, he has to be impeached. They can't come back. They can investigate him all they want. But you need a simple majority in the House to do anything about it. And then it goes over to the Senate where it gets tossed. And I don't think they have the political will to do so at this point, honestly. That's a nice thought. But it's never going to happen. In similar news, by the way, Biden tells Aaron Burnett that if Israel invades the city of Rafah, the U.S. will stop supplying it with artillery shells, bombs for fighter jets, and other offensive weapons. Didn't we do a whole impeachment for this at the very beginning of 2020? Now, this I don't think is an impeachable offense. I didn't think it was the first time. It's our money. We make the decisions and stipulations as to what it gets used for. But there were an awful lot of people in 2020 who thought it was an impeachable offense that now thinks that this is just business as usual, including ABC News. So we've got Newsweek that says Biden withholding aid from Israel sure looks impeachable. Going on the same points that I touched on here. And The Hill, Michael Sullivan, trying to defend this, saying a pause in military aid doesn't mean Biden will abandon Israel, because, they got to separate that from Donald Trump wanting to abandon Ukraine. But the interesting one for this one is the article I got from ABC News. Because again, you see, half the country thought this was an impeachable offense in January of 2020. You got suspended on YouTube for saying the name of the person who, quote, whistle blew on this one. Pausing military aid seen as a key tool in President's foreign policy toolbox. That didn't seem to be the case 4 years ago. Magua says, okay, when we get to 10,000 Mexicans, we will shut down the border. Israel, stop or we're going to only send weapons to Ukraine. Yeah, exactly. Let's read just a bit off of this one, though, from Ivan Pereira. Although congressional Republicans have been slamming Biden for his decision to withhold certain bomb shipments to Israel, such a move is not unprecedented, as they claimed. Previous presidents, including Republican ones, have withheld aid to send a clear message to Israel and other allies, a foreign policy expert told ABC News. However, given Biden's dispute with Netanyahu over a planned major invasion of Rafah, the risk of civilian casualties, combined with the political unrest in the U.S., his move carries a heavier risk, said Michael Sullivan, an adjunct professor at Georgetown University's School of Foreign Service. This is all a part of security cooperation, Sullivan said. At the end of the day, the president has the right to use every tool he can in his toolbox. Weird. Because I was told this was the deepest crime you could commit in the first 3 months of 2020, right up until the COVID hit, oddly enough. And there are also reports of Biden White House keeping sensitive Hamas intel from Israel draws outrage. I don't want to go too deep into this one because this is anonymous sources. For people with familiar with the situation, told the Washington Post that the admin is offering intel on Hamas tunnels and hideouts of its leaders if Israel pulls back. We don't have a name source on this one, so this is full grain of salt mode. But you're also putting an ally at risk. If this is true, you're putting an ally at risk for political gain. That is supposed to be the textbook definition of corruption right there. Do I have time for RFK stuff? I do. Let's do a little bit of RFK. Then we'll go on and we'll do things I like and things that I hate. And the final rule of acquisition, by the way. So, in one of the fastest political reversals in history, but me also reminding you, RFK Jr. is not an independent. He is a full-blooded corporate Democrat, just like Biden is. RFK Jr. full-term abortions are okay, from Hank Berrien. RFK Jr. stated in an interview released Wednesday that abortions at full term are okay with him. Podcaster and former ESPN host Sage Steele began asking if Kennedy on the Sage Steele show, should there be a limit, or you're saying all the way up to full term a woman has the right to have an abortion? I don't think any woman through history has ever said, I'm gonna have a baby. I'm going to get pregnant and carry that baby to 8 months of term, and then I'm going to terminate the pregnancy, Kennedy answered. I don't think anybody wants that. No video, unfortunately. That has happened too many times to count, Steele suggested. I'm sure that's happened. I would say almost in all of those cases there's extenuating circumstances, Kennedy surmised. But who knows, especially when there's drugs involved and people aren't thinking clearly. At the end of the day, it is happening. What I'm saying is I don't think any woman sets out saying, I'm going to carry a baby for 8 months and abort him, Kennedy responded. So in other words, keeping it as is, with Roe v. Wade having been overturned and leaving it up to the states to determine if and when a woman can have an abortion, Steele said. No, I wouldn't leave it up to the states, Kennedy said. I would say it's up to the woman. We shouldn't have the government involved. Even if it's full term, Steele asked. Even if it's full term. Look, I'm against government intervention, fully. I think, honestly, we should have private practice be having these discussions. And I don't think that a woman should have a full-term abortion. personally against abortion in all of its forms. But I'm against the government more, because they'll just put car votes in there for their friends and make it a hardship on the little people. Because that's what the government does. But even RFK himself was so ashamed of this that he walked this back. RFK Jr. reverses abortion stance after confusion, contradictions emerge within the campaign. Now, he had his vice president come back out and say, hey, we got to do something about this. During an interview with Sage Steele, the former ESPN host, Kennedy said he opposed any government restrictions, even if it's full term. But after facing pressure from his campaign staff, Kennedy walked back his previous statement, taking to social media to write that abortion should be legal up to a certain number of weeks and restricted thereafter. That's because going to full term is really unpopular, even with middle America. I mean, that's part of the reason that we got the Roe overturned. It's not because the entirety of the country suddenly became moralistic about at conception abortion. It's because Ralph Northam started talking about up to the moment of birth and even a little bit after, until the mother decides. And that was a bridge too far for most people. Hey, maybe this is the reason this happened here. New York Times, RFK Jr. says a worm got into my brain and ate a portion of it. From Michelle Shen. Independent presidential candidate RFK Jr. experienced a series of health issues in recent years, including an abnormality that he said was caused by a worm that entered his brain and then died, the New York Times reported on Wednesday. This is people's first choice for the president right now. Let that sink in. In 2010, Kennedy, now 70, experienced a severe memory loss and a mental fog. Oh, so he's in the same camp as Biden. He said in a deposition 2 years later, according to the Times, he consulted a top neurologist familiar with the medical history of his uncle, the late Senator Ted Kennedy. I believe that Dennis Leary once referred to Ted Kennedy as a great senator but a bad date. I would argue the great senator part. But we can ask the woman in the Lincoln how good of a date he was. Who had died of brain cancer in 2009, the New York doctor, after reviewing a scan of his brain, told him that his health issues could be caused by a worm that got into my brain and ate a portion of it and then died, Kennedy said in a 2012 deposition, which concerned a divorce from his second wife, Mary Richardson Kennedy. Bobby said that the time that his earning power had been negatively affected by the cognitive issues the Times reported. That is a front runner for the presidency. That scares the shit out of me. Like, a lot. Alright, I am fully black-pilled at this point. I'm thinking that means it's time for things I like and things that I hate. But before we do that, as we always do, in fact, per request from Jewel Helix, who I've not seen in quite a while, I hope he's okay. If anybody is in the Colorado area and knows of an angry little man, somebody go check on him. Because even though I can't read most of his his live chats rather in Rumble, he's very entertaining. And I miss that little guy. But we are on the final rule of acquisition, and per request from Julie Helix, after this, because we moved from morning to night, we will be starting back over from the top. We'll go another run through the rules of acquisition. As we always do on our Tuesday night show, which is now on Wednesday night, we read one of these rules of acquisition, the religious documentation from the fictitious race of Ferengi from the Star Trek universe who are hyper-capitalistic. We look at how these rules can be used in real life, if they can be, how they were used in the source material, and we make sure that we can make it to the divine treasury to bid on a better life. The last one, the 430, wow, I can talk. The 431st rule of acquisition. We must be over 2 hours. I'm starting to slur up. I'm starting to sound like Joe Biden, man. The 431st rule of acquisition. When the shooting starts, let the mercenaries handle it. This may or may not be canon. Well, it's not canon, it's beta canon. But this is from the Star Trek Online mission, Echoes of Light. Well, this goes along with many of the other rules of acquisition we talked about earlier, including the 122nd rule of acquisition. He who dives under the table lives to sell another day. Now, I myself, if I'm in a combat situation, am one who will go headlong into it. Mostly because I want to protect the people who are smaller, and I'm a decent sized guy. So I want to give the people who are smaller, weaker, a chance to get back out. But I would probably be the mercenary in this situation. But if you're in a situation like that, and you are concerned about your profit, your ability to survive, and you have a mercenary, somebody else protecting you, guarding your assets, etc., then yes, it may be better off for you to let them handle it, rather than jumping and running in headlong to it. I mean, I've learned my lesson in 2007 on that one, on diving into a fight that there's no way that you can win, because there are way too many people involved. I mean, even Mr. Miyagi said, the best block is walking away. So this is a good one. And that concludes our first run-through of the religious text of the rules of acquisition. It's been a great run. I mean, we've been doing this for a long time because there are a lot of these. And even when this was a daily show, I only did this one night on the daily show. Like, I had 5 different ways that I ended the show when this was a morning show. So, we will start back next week with number 0, which also comes from a video game, Star Trek Online, and go through the list again. And then after we get through the list, we'll find something else geeky to do in this segment. Maybe I'll see a different fandom, I don't know. But yes, those are your rules of acquisition. Sometimes you sound like Biden, and sometimes you sound like Trump. There's times when I sound like Trump, it's the best voice, the best impression. Nobody has impressions like me. Alright. Let's do some things I like and some things that I hate. This was an interesting one for me. Because while I'm anti-war, the people who are involved in this are very pro-war, and I don't usually like them very much. But when the people who are literally in charge of your military are walking away because you're doing stupid foreign policy, and these are the warmongers of the world, that their paycheck depends on it, you're doing something stupid. Pentagon intelligence officer quits in protest of the Israel-Hamas war. From Ellen Mitchell. Briefly, an Army officer within the Defense Intelligence Agency has resigned in protest over the Biden admin's support for Israel and its war in Gaza, citing major ethical concerns for which he could not justify staying silent any longer. In his resignation, officially submitted November 1st, distributed internally on April 16th, and publicly released Monday on LinkedIn, Major Harrison Mann asserts that the U.S. government's unquestioned backing of its ally has enabled and empowered the killing of Palestinian civilians. Now, while I am Team America first, and it seems that this person is going to be Palestine first off this one, I still respect the idea to realize that when the commander-in-chief is fucking up that badly, that yes, you should walk away. So good on this guy. Other things that I like, I'm kind of a flag person, kind of enjoy them a little bit here, and our neighbors to the west just got themselves a new flag. Let's first listen or watched the video rather, because I don't believe he speaks in this. I've only seen the video, I've never heard the audio off of this. From the Calvin Coolidge Project again. Should be pretty obvious why I follow that page. I'm a big fan of Calvin Coolidge. New, the state of Minnesota has officially a new state flag.
All right, ready. Whoa, wait a minute. There, that's better.
So while that was probably one of the most cringe-inducing videos I've ever seen in my life, I like the fact that Minnesota went out and spoke and found what was important to them. Now, a lot of the reason, and we'll look briefly into a CBS article surrounding this, for doing so was because there was a Native American who was misrepresented on the flag. But that is a part of the heritage and how Minnesota came to be as well. It's a reason that he was on the flag to begin with. And honestly, I think the flag looks kind of cool. Let's read it briefly from CBS News. Minnesota's officially flying its new flag. What happened to the old one? From Riley Moser. Minnesota officially adopted its new state flag on Saturday, making the old flag history. So what happens to the old flag now that it's obsolete? The old flag, which the Minnesota legislature adopted in 1957, will no longer fly on any official government building. It will still fly in people's homes, by the way. Before the new flag was raised at sunrise, the outgoing state flags were retired by the Minnesota National Guard. The Minnesota Department of Admin says it planned for the new flags to coincide with its flag replacement schedule. The Minnesota Historical Society will preserve the old flag that flew over the Capitol and Court of Honor on the Capitol Mall. The other retired flags at the Capitol will be decommissioned consistent with U.S. flag code. The state had not officially provided any guidance on the disposal of the old flags, but a spokesperson for the Minnesota court system said it suggested that judicial districts contact their local government agencies to inquire about any potential disposal efforts or programs, or ship them to the Judicial Center in St. Paul so they can be burned. I would auction them off. If I was as deep in debt as Minnesota, there are history nuts all over this country that are going to be jumping for the chance to get their hands on an actual official Minnesota flag to display somewhere. Museums, private collectors who want to build museums. I wouldn't burn these things. You can get some real money, especially since they're state property. You can get some good money, and hey, let's run a budget surplus here. But I do think the flag is kind of cool. I think it's enjoyable to see how it goes. I thought the CBS article had a picture of the flag. Let me grab one of those quick. Images. We'll use this one because it has it waving. Put image in a new tab. And we'll bring this over here. So that is the new flag of Minnesota with the North Star. And I'm not sure what the colors pertain to. I want to do a little bit of research on that later on. But, I mean, that's what the people of Minnesota wanted. I can't vote in that state, so I can't have a say in it. And it will give a chance to have some circulation on these things. All right, now let's do a few things that I hate. So this one to start with. The Aurora Police Department puts out this image with the caption talking about what happened in the situation they're in. Arrest made in child sex assault / kidnapping. Early Friday morning, an 11-year-old female reported she was kidnapped and sexually assaulted while on her way to the bus stop. Which, first stop there is straight into the wood chipper with you. The preliminary investigation shows an unknown adult male approached the juvenile, grabbed her arm and took her to his apartment nearby, where it is reported he sexually assaulted her. She's able to escape the suspect's home and found a community member to help her call 911. When officers arrived, they identified and arrested 31-year-old Shukarani Melinda, who was a registered sex offender. He was arrested for secondary kidnapping and sex assault on a child. Now, this is probably a stock photo somewhere, but they show a very, very clearly Caucasian male alongside an Aurora Police Department car with the arrest made. And a lot of people noticed this as they went here because, well, that's the person who is in question, who is the suspect. All suspects are innocent until proven guilty, of course. I will hold to that standard still. But that is the actual suspect in this case. And I'm sure that was done very, very much for propagandistic purposes. A couple other ones that I hate here. So this one has been making the rounds. TX2 says this is what punk is about. A year ago, we wrote a song and named it after the governor in Tennessee who was trying to pass laws banning drag shows affecting gender-affirming care. We called it several governors by name in the song to spread awareness. But see, from what I understand, this is not punk because this is establishment people coming on and saying exactly what the federal government stance is, what every institution in this country's stance is, what most state government stance is on the issue. This is people being the establishment. And I mean, you're an artist, make whatever music you want, but you're going to draw questions from people like me when you come back and call it punk. Let's listen.
Put a bullet in a kid's head, think they got a sickness and they're not dressed up straight. But what happens in the closet doesn't matter if you profit from the flag of the USA. You're too fucking old, you do as you're told. You base your life off a nation scroll. Out there burning witches, filling up the ditches. Tell me, can I still be saved? Put a
Yeah, Count Dankula right off the top says, punk is when all my opinions line up with the state's. Yeah, even the Stray Cats would be opposed out to this one here. I don't know how I lived long enough that conservatism became the counterculture. Because I was massively against Bush when I was younger. Based on the fact that that was the establishment, and I'm still against Bush to this day. And anybody who votes the same way that that asshole did. To this day, I'm still against that. The music is punk-ish, but the lyrics definitely are not. I will never, ever, ever stop at an opportunity to berate Ron DeSantis because he's a terrible politician. But he's going to be proud of this one here, Ron DeSantis, from his own X account. Today, I went to the University of Florida to plant the flag in the ground right where the short-lived pro-Hamas encampment was attempted. That Florida stands for order, even as chaos reigns supreme in other parts of the country. Let's listen.
Now, if you look around the country, you have a lot of elite colleges and universities that are really campus. The summer October 7th attack. You see that, that is not what we want to be.
Wait, did he manage to get a clip up with no audio? Really? Like, I've got the volume up on this. I commented on a different comment on this one. Vincinatus says, tell me one other elected official that confronts and defeats the enemies of normal Americans the way that Ron DeSantis does. To which I came back and said, calling your fellow countrymen enemies of America is certainly a look. Could you stand with clenched fists in the air in front of a blood-red background and do it verbally, with two Marines standing behind you, for comparison's sake? I think the campus protests are some of the stupidest things in the world. The vast majority of the people who are out there doing the campus protests have absolutely no idea what they're protesting. And I talked about this last week, where when I was younger, when they protested my friend coming back to school, that most of them were just looking for a way to get out of class and not be penalized for it. But to violently go in and break up legitimate political discourse because you don't agree with it, because your donors don't agree with it, and then call it standing for order, this is why you lost, Ron DeSantis. His supporters think that he's doing the right thing, and I mean, looking from the outside, people would look at this and say, oh yeah, he's definitely doing the right thing and everything, but I mean, these are the same people who are decrying the fact that the J6ers are still in prison. So it's only they're only against protests when it's protest against things that they like. I think I'm gonna do a couple more here, and then we're gonna head out of here for the night. This made the rounds this week here. Tulsa, Oklahoma police raid the wrong house and scare the crap out of a mother and 3 kids. If you are going in with guns drawn, you really need to make sure you've got the right house. Not only will your suspect actually get away, but there is an innocent kid in this house. 3 innocent kids. Let's watch.
What's that?
Police search warrant! Police search warrant! Policía orden de arresto!
Yeah, the guy looking around like, oh shit, did we just do the wrong thing? Every person in that line should have his badge taken away. And the judge that signed off on the warrant that led to this should be disbarred. Not only taken away from the bench, but lose his license to practice law. That is uncalled for. One of the funnier ones that we talked about over in the Discord, which if you are not in, you should join, because we occasionally, it's pretty quiet in there, but occasionally we'll have a fun discussion in there. Anti-sex beds. Yes, we've been talking about this since last Olympics. The anti-sex beds have arrived in Paris after horny athletes admit to orgies amid competition. So the thought behind this is not just the fact that this is a twin extra long bed, because let me tell you, anybody who's been in college already knows that if you want to do it on a twin extra long bed, it's not really that difficult to do. But these were also designed so that they would approximately handle only the weight of one person and collapse under the weight of more than one person. Because apparently the floor doesn't exist. Or the balcony. Or the bathroom sink. Or the shower. Or a seedy bar bathroom somewhere near. I mean, it is Paris. Now, what's funny about this is actually, and they use the Huffington Post as a source, so I question that. But they got a community note on this one that says, the beds at the Olympic have been designed with sustainability in mind. The 2020 sex ban has been lifted and athletes can have sex if they want to. See, I don't know how much of that is true because we've been talking about that for quite a while, and yeah. Again, regardless, there are 75 million other flat surfaces that they could have used. Not just those beds. But hey, you know what? Good job. And the last one on things that I hate, and we'll head out of here for the night. Yes, Tinkerbell is now problematic. Because we couldn't find anything else to be offended about this week. Carrie Sloan. Tinkerbell is now problematic. Tinkerbell, unfortunately, has become a problematic image for our guests, specifically young girls. Specifically in terms of the portrayal of an unrealistic body image. She's a fairy. As well as dependency of approval and or attention from Peter Pan. As seen in previous incarnations of the character, we feel these traits are no longer representative of our inclusive focused values and thus are currently in the process of redesigning an updated Tinkerbell for modern audiences. That is from a Disney rep of May of 2024. Oh good, you're back just in time to talk about Tinkerbell. We'll actually be heading out of here in just a moment, but what about the little girls that identify with her sassy, assertive personality? Seems like Disney's marginalizing those girls, doesn't it? The fact that we have to be offended by Tinkerbell, of all people. Now, the first thing I'm going to ask is, what are your, like the female and even the male action stars of most movies, what do they look like? They don't look like this, I can tell you that right now, for the males. For the women, they're either typically a longer and leaner type like Jennifer Lawrence, Angelina Jolie, things like that. Typically, your people who look like Rebel Wilson or Amy Schumer are relegated to comedy roles. If they wanted to pursue an action role, I'd watch it. I think, you know, I'd see how it comes back and turns out. But, I mean, these casting directors, this is not just Tinkerbell. Number two, this is not a human character, and the attention from Peter Pan was edited out in later edits of this character, as far as I know. I mean, didn't they have some big movie thing out there where they changed Tinkerbell from an attention-seeking little fairy that, you know, you had to clap so loud, otherwise she might die, into, like they said in the X, the sassy, independent, I'm a tinker fairy. I seem to remember that quote from a commercial. But are we seriously running out of things to be offended about that we have to come back and do this? Yeah. The extremely traditional person has a point. Fuck these morons for screwing over Tinkerbell. Her body shape is good and beautiful, hence why they hate it, and her looking to Peter for guidance and validation is also good and beautiful, hence why they hate it. So, yes, we've come that far. Alright. Hey, I'm completely blackpilled right now. That must mean it's the end of the show. You know, I feel really good when I start this out every week. Like, I feel positive, like, hey, we're moving in a good direction. I'm going to have a fun show. And by 8:30, I've got my hands in my head. I'm sorry, my head in my hands. Eyeing longingly at that bottle of tequila I can see from right here. Or the wine behind me. And saying, how much there do I actually have to be at work tomorrow? I don't know. The people doing the stupid things are winning. Is it time for a sermon from the book of ANCAP Religious Edicts? Alright, let's throw some outro music up and head out of here. Well, that's certainly been a week. Thank you, everybody who came by, hung out, chatted in the live chat. We'll be back here on Tuesday again. We'll go back to regular schedule next week for more news, more headlines, and more contemporary. No Diablo 2 stream this week because of the rescheduling that had to take place, but we will be back here Friday for Fallout Friday as well. A little bit early, of course, because I have to work on Saturday. Picked up an extra shift because, well, I'm greedy. You guys know that about me. But thanks again. Take care. Have a fantastic night. Go hug your family. Get some food. Enjoy what's left of your night here. And get out and enjoy some of the weather. And if you are listening back to this on the audio platform, please share this out. And if you're on Apple Podcasts, hey, download this and a bunch of other episodes, even if you delete them back again, because I still get credit for that. Just saying. Just reminding you off that. Take care. Once again, audio platform will be available in the morning for people who have missed this, plus a re-upload to YouTube as the stream gets privatized as soon as we're off air. So, take care. We will see you here next time. And the new stream and the audio platform will be in the Discord tomorrow morning, bright and early. Have a good night. We will see you here next time for more news, more headlines, and more contemporary. And until then, I am Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Take care.